Naomi Hoffmeyer is the co-founder of the Houston Youth Harp Ensemble, the only youth harp ensemble in the Houston area.
Sure. So I moved to Houston 10 years ago to go to grad school. And I just ended up getting connected to the community and staying here. As a harpist, I am classically trained and I teach private students and perform for events and with different ensembles around the area.
What do you believe the hardest thing about being a harpist is?
I think probably just having to deal with such a large instrument and all the limitations, such as having a large car and living on the ground floor, or, needing a place that doesn't have stairs. Things like that are kind of special challenges for us.
What is your favorite pop song to perform at weddings?
I think probably one I always really like is All of Me by John Legend.
What inspired you to co-found the Houston Youth Harp Ensemble?
So my co-founder, Stephanie Gustafson, and I were just talking one evening after going to a some kind of performance, and just thinking that there are so many students in the Houston area, so many harp students, and that other big cities like Atlanta and Chicago, for example, have these kind of thriving youth harp ensembles. And we just thought, well, we were kind of saying like somebody should do that. I thought it would be really great for us. And then we decided we would try to do it.
Do you believe it is important for young harpists to work in an ensemble type setting? What skills can they learn?
Yeah, so playing with other people is such a rewarding part of being a musician and such a big part of it. And I think the reason that we really wanted to start the HYHE was partly from our own experience of playing in orchestras growing up, in that as a harpist, you're often the only person in your section and you don't really play that much, kind of, especially, proportionate to like a violinist or something. And so we just kind of feel like it takes harpists a lot longer to build up ensemble skills in an orchestra setting, because you're often not really playing with other harpists, you're just kind of on your own and you just don't play as much. So in a harp ensemble, you really have to develop those skills of listening to each other, um, being able to listen, across parts. So not only lining up with people that are playing the same thing as you, but knowing how it lines up with the other parts, trying to blend your sound together. It obviously develops rhythm skills and being reliable with a steady tempo and all kinds of things like that. And kind of in a bigger picture, we just felt like it's important for young harpists to get to know each other and have an opportunity to form a community, um, outside of who they might know at school. Or some harpists, although there are so many of them in the area, are the only one in their school, so they don't really have a lot of other people their age that they know.
How do you go about the music selection process when dealing with a wide range of skill levels?
Yeah, this is always very tricky, especially when we have students that we haven't worked with before. We sort of have to guess at their skill level, and we're trying to balance. We don't want people to be bored, but we also don't want people to feel incredibly overwhelmed and like crushed by the difficulty of the music. So we start with a theme. We try to have a theme for every semester, and then we start to just look at different um, harp music websites, or retailers, like Harp Column and Melodies and Vanderbilt. And I mean, there's an astounding amount of harp ensemble repertoire out there. And so we start to narrow it down by what fits in our theme, how many people we have signed up, like do we have enough to do quartets, or do we need to just stick with duets and trios, whether we have lever harps or pedal harps. So there's like all these kind of filters. And then we actually start to think about how easy or difficult is this. And the best thing is when we can find something that has, a variety of levels kind of already written into it. Like you can have something more complicated with more advanced people and something that's maybe just the melody, for less advanced students. And sometimes we've even written simpler parts, just kind of extracted them from the already published parts. And we always tell people they're welcome to also modify or edit their parts or leave anything out that they need to. And so we hope that that works, but I would say that is probably the trickiest part, honestly, of running a harp ensemble.
What are some things you do to keep students engaged during rehearsals?
Yeah. So we try to start each rehearsal with just kind of a little sort of game or exercise that everybody can do together. In the very first one, we'll do some kind of getting to know you game, like just kind of getting everybody to say each other's name and maybe remember one or two little facts about each other. And then in future rehearsals, we'll do things like having people, play one measure of their part, and then the next person in the line plays the next measure, and so on. So you're, really listening, you're following along, getting engaged in a different way. And then we try to do some games that are, not solely related to actually playing. We do have a tradition of always playing HYG Jeopardy at the first rehearsal, which is pretty fun. And so we sort of base those questions on some on the repertoire itself and some on just kind of general musical knowledge or harp history or things like that. Um, so yeah, kind of a combination of like educational games and more just kind of fun but music-based games. I think we also have like music bingo and music Jenga. Um, those have been good.
Lastly, what advice would you offer to young harpists wanting to play in harp ensembles?
I think the two things that I wish I had figured out sooner, or really the one, but they sort of go together. One is you have to know your part really well before you get to rehearsal. Like the rehearsal is not for you to practice your part, it's for you to listen to everybody else. Really, that's what you want to be doing. So, I mean, this is also true if you're playing an orchestra. Um, I feel like when I was young, I was definitely very focused on just like playing the right notes at the right time, and I had no idea what anybody else was doing. Um, and then the other thing that really helps with that, and this is what I feel like I wish I had learned earlier in particular, is um, listening to recordings of the pieces before rehearsal if you can. And this helps you just get to know the other parts and know what they're supposed to sound like and hear how they fit together. And if you can get to the point where you can even play with the recording, then you're really prepared on your part and you'll be able to really participate.